Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. And again, I want to give a shout out to S. Jock for this link. I want to also thank those of you that have come through on Cash App, even though it's been a while since I've seen it. I want to thank Malika Mebani, S. Jock for that, D. Smith, Gail at Night, Mr. Peterson, Chosen One, DN 3001. Y'all know who y'all are. And others, others whose names I'm afraid to say, Armando, but others whose names I'm afraid to mispronounce. And largely because I take the names and I recode them so that they know who I'm thanking, but other people, other people won't violate their privacy. As Jacques sent me a link to send me a link to something that really made it made me remember certain things that I'd forgotten a while back. One of the links he sent me was it was a link to this teacher named Hannah that quit after 3 years in the classroom. 3 years. And she said, never mind. 3 years. America can't be saved for one reason above others, or one reason independently of the other reasons. And it is sufficient independently to stop America from being salvageable. That reason is the educational system, the education of the kids themselves, really the rearing of the kids. The kids don't have accountability for the most part. So when they don't do well in school, there's not much that's done. And my parents usually said, we don't really believe in beating the hell out of you for bad grades, but you do have to try. We'll beat that ass if you're lazy. And that's fair. I mean, that's what my pops said to me a while back. He told me, yep, if you're lazy, I will beat that ass. And he did. If he thought I was lazy. The only subject for which I ever really got an ass whooping was math. And math was just not my forte. It was actually my kryptonite. I couldn't keep track of a bunch of numbers, but I could understand language. So therefore, I simply had to understand that I was going to, as long as math was difficult, I was running the risk of getting my ass whipped. Because my dad did not know that math could be this hard for anybody. He's just naturally highly intelligent. He's not even a bookworm, but he's just naturally very intelligent. But unfortunately, the kryptonite of the intelligent is the lack of understanding of the stupid. The lack of comprehension of stupidity. So the subconscious mind still has a lot of assumptions when inside the brain of the intelligent. So you damn near have to look like another species before somebody would say you might actually be incapable of something. The other thing about math is that math was taught in such a way that once you were good at something, you were done with it. So you move on to the next thing and you wind up spending the most time on the things in which you are the absolute worst. So once long division, which is your kryptonite, is reached, then you stay on that until you're not bad at it anymore. And then you race through whatever you're good at, if you're good at anything. And then the next thing you're bad at, you'll spend the most time doing. And so consequently, as a child, you are made to feel stupid the majority of your time studying. So math ruined childhood for me many years. 4th grade, 5th grade, especially 4th. Hell, it ruined childhood for me 2nd grade, 4th grade, 5th, again in 7th. And then math and chemistry ruined my childhood a few years out of high school. It ruined my brother's childhood. It didn't help that my brother had this crazy bitch teaching him math when he got to middle school and high school, which was the all black school we attended. I mean, she was out of her mind. She fought with another teacher over a copying machine. So I looked at what this was, and I realized that my teachers, who were also baby boomers, didn't understand a lot of disabilities. A lot of disabilities were relatively new diagnoses, and they thought this is some bullshit. Back in my day, nobody had that. And I guess that's fine. But, back in your day, you all didn't know what you know today about psychology and medicine anyway. So, I mean, if you have these advancements, you're going to have new discoveries, and you're not going to like everything that you discover. My brother once had to be talked down by a cousin of mine from calling my parents up and cussing them out when my brother found out that it was actually quite common for some people to struggle with certain things with which he struggled. So, and that was because my parents did not understand that was actually difficult. They thought he was just making excuses. I never had to be talked down from cussing them out because they really thought that. I knew they didn't make it up. They just really thought that. But then I had to understand, too, that while you have a lot of these new diagnoses that might actually exist, you also have a lot of kids that are diagnosed that don't have these conditions. See, I don't think that they want to really make up conditions that don't exist yet. We're not to that point yet. I do suspect that a lot of kids, especially black kids who don't have them, get diagnosed with them. And I also suspect that, and here's why I say that, we live in a system in which if many of us had these disabilities for real, they would just not recognize these as diagnoses. And then they just blame the kids because whatever doesn't help is what they're going to do to us. Keep that in mind. That's why it is I say some of the things I say about white society in general. And it ain't just that I'm blackity black fist in the air. No, it's because when it comes to racial conflicts, black is right, white is wrong. And collectively speaking, that's what the F it is. Individually, whites can be different. But as societies, we have a lot of enemies. Tory Lane's case just proved that. And we got a bodyguard coming out. I don't know why he didn't do it before, but we got a bodyguard coming out and saying, no, actually, it was Harris that shot Megan Thee Stallion. So somehow Harris and Megan Thee Stallion came to an agreement that they were going to sit up and blame Tory Lanez. Not just because it was his gun. They were going to say he fired. He got 10 years. He just got stabbed up by an essay. More like paragraph because he's an essay locked up in protective custody. And I'm looking at this ex, wannabe cholo again and thinking to myself, so he's doing a stab up. For what? I mean, what is Tory doing that really warrants that kind of disrespect? Tory ain't involved in thug mess like that. He raps. Tory got some trim from a woman taller than most dudes that takes pride in being a thought, but she decided to go ahead and smash a dude shorter than her, even though he's famous, and she still felt embarrassed about it. So she's like, let's go ahead and blame it on him. And the only reason she even admitted that she ever laid down with him was because it was going to get him in trouble, get him thrown in prison. And she out here thoughting it up. So what I'm saying is that lesson learned is that black men, collectively speaking, individually, no, but black men collectively speaking have the enemies in the forms of the women from whose wombs we come, and non-black societies that live in the West. A black man has a better shot at being treated well in Mexico than he does by Mexicans in the United States. And I could tell you that. I've heard them talking. I told you I spied on white folk before by simply sitting down somewhere and not letting them see my face. Because my face may or may not give me away. But then, sometimes, I've heard them say a few things if the subject of black folks comes up. And really, their kids will sit up and tell you, yeah, my granddad's a racist. He doesn't think anything's wrong with white folks, but he can't stand black folks. That's all the hell I need to hear. It's not just a dislike for us. It's when you think white is normal or even something to which to look up. And I'm like, okay, you're an enemy. You're not just a brainwashed. You are a goddamn enemy. Damn you to hell. If you burned alive, I wouldn't feel any pity. I'd probably throw some gasoline on. Oops, my bad. I thought it was water. My bad. My bad. Bitch. Because I'm like that. How you just gonna gang up on people that ain't done nothing to you and then you come from them? You go to Mexico and you find something like, no, black folk are actually superior. That's the funny thing. The Western world, culturally speaking, I don't mean geographically. The Americas are the West geographically. And they're becoming that culturally. But what they call the Western world, the countries that so-called matter, do make it plain to you that you're going to have to be a bit anti-black to get ahead. That's why Indians do very well in these countries. If you really want to know the truth, they already have the caste system built in. It doesn't take nothing. And if you're Muslim Indian, you still know the caste system. All you got to do is take that idea with you and that understanding with you so that you can move up after a while. But that's another topic for another day. Hannah gave up teaching because with AI being out and around now, and it came out, she started in 2022. So that means that pretty much, I remember hearing about it at the beginning of 2023, but I remember trying it out for the first time in the summer of 2023. And I was stunned. But I remember using it at that point. I'd been hearing about it from beforehand. So that means that pretty much most of her teaching experience has been with the existence and availability of AI engines to her students. And they're just like, we're just not going to write. We will not do it. We will always look for the easy way out. Now, there's some skills for which you can't justify that. You simply can't. You're going to use ChatGPT not to help you organize something or to help you keep track of certain things, but to just do your work for you. Well, dot-gam. That's really what you're going to do? Can you imagine that? ChatGPT is just one example of it. But generally speaking, AI engines, as they learn, they begin to do things like try to preserve themselves, foster deception, make up information to fill in gaps, stuff like that. Oh, yeah. See, we have some people here that have tried to use ChatGPT to write dissertations to get degrees, masters and PhDs degree. And guess what the hell has happened? They use this stuff and they don't realize that the dissertation they're turning in will refer to a source, a book that does not effing exist by authors that don't exist or were never born. Yeah, this has happened. Later on, they get caught and they don't realize that the books don't exist. Well, I didn't make up any books or anything like that. Yeah, you did. It's right there. This book was never published. You wrote this thing 5 years ago. This book ain't been published before or since then. Oh, well, not 5 years because that's too long ago, but like that, a year ago. This book ain't been, there's not even a manuscript with any publisher. We checked. Oh. And these AI detectors are getting better. So Hannah was having an easy time proving that, this little mother cuss word used AI to generate. Now, one of my students did something smart. He used AI to generate a sort of template from which he could then fill in the blanks to write essays. He did that, and that was a smart thing to do. I told him the only thing I have against what you did was that you waited till the end of the semester to do that. You could have started off like this and shared this template with your classmates, but you waited till now. That's not forward thinking enough. You upped that fuck, bruh. But the idea was a good one, just entirely too late. And I already told you in my addendum to Professor LBRY that they didn't come to class on Tuesday, they didn't come Wednesday, and then on Thursday, yesterday, when I recorded and uploaded Professor LBRY's addendum and how you live abroad and what you got to solve when you live abroad, I already told you even there. Well, guess what? I was recording that in the classroom while waiting for them again Thursday. They never showed up. No, I'm sorry, right before the class Thursday. It had to be somewhere else. But right before that class Thursday, they never showed up. I knew they weren't going to. I uploaded, uh, yeah, uploaded it, made it available. And then I went to the classroom. They didn't show up, which of course I knew they wouldn't. And then I went downstairs to this award show that we were asked to go to if you had the time. And well, my students gave me the time. Do you know what it was that I told my students on Sunday and Monday that made my students not show up? It's real simple. I told my students Sunday and Monday, this last week before exams, we're going to practice writing, 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 writing with a 50-minute time limit each way. I will then take essays, place them up on the board with your names blocked out for your privacy, and I will point out what is good and what you learn. So you learn from each other what to do and what you don't do, so that you learn from each other what mistakes to not repeat. And we're going to do this to get you practiced in writing in 50-minute time limits. We're going to do this so that you learn what to improve, what to stop doing. We're going to do that intensively these last 3 days because you guys are not getting better at your damn writing. Your grammar is still Niglish. I said on Sunday, I told them, Sunday, today, you are allowed to use your vocabulary list, the word form chart. You are allowed, you're allowed it, but you are not on tomorrow. You cannot use the vocabulary list, and you cannot ask me how to spell words or what a particular word means. You can't do that. Starting tomorrow, Monday, you're not allowed to. And on Monday, one of my better students, the one that used AI to generate a template that would help him without him cheating, yeah, that guy, he turned around and said, how can I spell beauty? And he said it in the wrong way. He said, how I can spell beauty? That's not how you ask the question, and he knows that. And I told him, first off, that's not a question. And secondly, that's one less essay I got to grade right now, because I told you niggas that if you ask me how to spell something today, that's an essay I don't grade. And he took that. He said, I deserve that. But guess what? Because of that, because they realized that I was not playing around, they decided to not show up Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, last 3 days of class. This is in a conservative nation at a university. I know Hannah was dealing with the real BS in high school, and she said, we actually had a lot of motivated students, so I'm not trying to say it's all of them. No, Hannah was being nice. It's not all of them, but the ones that are motivated get beaten up by the ones that are not, either verbally or physically, whatever one. I want you guys to understand that very state right there, that whole anti-intellectualism amongst teenagers is enough to ruin a nation. It has kept this nation here in which I live dependent upon people that are not from here to hold it together. And we're now being joined by those who are from here that do take education seriously, joining our ranks. So together we'll be able to hold this thing together. But even they have to kind of culturally turn their backs on their own people and sometimes even their own families. Because in order for them to actually finish a effing class, you know what a lot of these dudes have to do? The girls, they can stay. The girls can stay home. They can stay in the same city. It's actually preferred they stay in the same city in which their moms and dads live, and they go to school there. If they do go to study in another city, they go only to a university where there is a ladies' dormitory on the ladies' campus, so that they don't have to just live away from the men in their family and just out and about with everybody else. So that then it might be acceptable. Okay, she's from Qasim and she went to study in Heil or something like that. Okay, fine. Guess what? You know what they're doing now? Here's what they're doing now at this point. Many guys here are beginning to say, I'm not going to study in the same city in which I live. If they don't have a lot of sisters or their moms are relatively healthy, then they might do that. But if they actually find, if their moms are needy and they got plenty of sisters, all that stuff, they're just like, you know what, I'm going to go study somewhere else, man. I'm through with this. It's easier for them because then they rent a little cheap apartment if they can find one. Rent's going up. And they study in another city and maybe get a little job, maybe do some Uber driving when they're not studying. They'll do stuff like this. And one of the reasons they do it is because since they are living away from their family, nobody's going to call them and ask them for rides all the goddamn effing time. Those are the ones that are serious about education, but they come from families, large families with several women in them. And the women in the families don't usually hate these guys. I asked some guys on Wednesday night I was hanging out with, how many of you have to deal with this? And they said it's not common, but we know it exists. We just didn't know it was intentional until you told us that this was intentional. And I had to say to them, yes, yeah, that's true. It is intentional. Yeah, I can tell it's intentional because of how often it happens. That's how I know. I can tell you it's intentional just based on that, because especially if the sister's also studying, she knows what it takes to study. Father, what would she try to stop her brother from doing it? But yeah, it does happen. I just don't know what the percentage is of the guys who face this. And some of them said, well, how do you know that these ladies are faking it? And I said, well, the thing is that a student who lies to try to get out of class normally will do that a few times. And a lot of times they'll just have a high absence rate without even showing up. Those are those guys. But then you've got other guys that they're in class, they'll come to class, and then they get interrupted a lot. And then they also don't show up other days. But then they'll come in late as well, many other days. So you can tell that's how you can tell they're actually just being interrupted. Okay, now you can go to class. Bitch, I'm not going to be marked present for class this time. Now I can go. No, dumbass. Might as well take your ass home and stay there with you, because, I mean, the class is going to be over in 40 minutes. I'll walk in 20 minutes left. And what the hell? Well, be a man and drive me here. You don't want me taking taxis, do you? No, I don't. But here's the thing. You have Uber for ladies here. People don't tell you about that. Yeah, you got Uber for ladies. And the fact that you stop seeing Uber for ladies every so often even being offered tells you something. Because it ain't making no money, because these women don't even want women driving them. That tells me a lot of what I need to know, right? Mother cuss word there. These women want to drive. They want to get into cars driven by dudes, sometimes so they can steal from these dudes. If these guys are carrying cash, yeah, they'll try to steal the cash. That's something the Uber drivers have told me about. They're out here stealing. Yeah. See, the thing is that they try to steal from a woman driving. She sees it. She can punch them. The dudes don't try to punch these women for that. They may report them, but they don't try to punch them. I would. I'll grab her arm. I'll put my hands on a woman. Put my other hand in her pocket, take the money out, and say, now you take your little butt on. And if you say something to the cops about me putting hands on you, then I'm going to have your hands cut off for trying to steal. Now, it's not that they're actually going to get their hands cut off. I just don't tell them that. I mean, I wouldn't tell them that if that were the case. But women don't want to put their hands on me. To them, I look like somebody that used to rap with Tupac because I'm bald headed. And that I don't look my age to them. So and I'm not a driver. But the point is that you have all of this stuff going on here. So this is why it is that those who do want to value education and development have to kind of turn their backs on their own people and start hanging out with foreigners that are also here, because we have to be educated and skillful to be here for something, unless we're labor. And the other thing, too, is that this has always been what's going on in the States. The States just has a lot of momentum that we gave to the U.S. by building it at gunpoint. And now one thing Dennis Sperling has been right about is that we're sort of sitting back and resting and saying, no, you're going to fix this on your goddamn own. Now, I'm not with all this, sue black folks and let white folks off the hook, because that's still going to allow them some momentum. But I'm not going to talk about that on here. I said that I would talk about that on the Jet Black Air Lounge, and I do. I actually put up some information that's worthwhile regarding these land scams in Ghana, something that would help you if you know about it. But you got to go there, and you're going to have to subscribe in order to find out what it is. I don't remember if I made that one available for business or only first class. I'm sorry. I honestly don't remember which one I made it. Let me see. Hold on. Got access to another screen so I can put this up and find out. Let's see here. All right. So that's the post that is entitled FBA to FBAA Rumored land scams in Ghana. That is available for both business and first class. So if you subscribe at any level, 5 or 10 a month, it doesn't matter. You'll be able to see that and you'll be able to hear the message uploaded to that, which has some valuable information from someone from Ghana who knows that situation because he got friend in the land commission. And some of you are saying, well, isn't he going to be biased about this stuff? You tell me. Go listen and find out. And I want to give a shout out to Ryan G because on the Jet Black Air Lounge, I get many views for these videos compared to how many people I have subscribed. Or not videos, but the whole post, whether the videos, sound clips, whatever. I get quite a few views for them. But Ryan G is the one that actually will answer me on that. Shout out to him. But the main point of this, again, is that there's not really much you can do in order to keep the states afloat at this point. Black folks, if you are stuck in the United States, you're going to have to think like a nation. A nation that is part of a multinational race, a continental race. You're going to have to think of yourself as a nation and function like it. You may have to do some things that seem fictitious right now, and then later on they won't be fictitious anymore because who the hell is going to make them unreal? You may have to start issuing a type of passport that identifies you as FBA. It could be a souvenir passport, but with a real microchip in it. If the states collapses now, you've got something that could be used as an actual passport. And you're the citizen, not Billy Bob, who's your next door neighbor and been nice to you or been mean to you or whatever the case is. No, it's not him. It's because of his history. And we could have special deals then with those of the Caribbean nations because we'd have our own. They got special deals with themselves, CARICOM. They have entry into African nations if they can get into those nations' airports. They can enter visa free for a certain length of time. In the Gulf, that is a very simple cooperation that they have. It's very effective too, though. In the Gulf, you can live freely in each other's nations and you can travel back and forth between them with an ID card. Once you have one Gulf nation's ID card as a citizen issued to you, you can travel to another Gulf nation. You can leave your passport at home. As a Saudi, you can drive from Saudi Arabia to Bahrain. You can drive from Saudi to Kuwait. You can drive from Saudi to Qatar. You can fly. And once you get to the immigration and the passport control, you show your ID card, you go on through. Now, you might have to pull over sometimes and show and put a fingerprint down to show that you entered their country. You may have to do that. You got to show an ID card when you're at the border crossings or when you're at the airports and about to fly out of the country into another country. You may have to show that it's recorded, but you're not highly regulated. Like, you don't need you don't even need a passport. And you can live in their countries. You can find a job in their countries. You can buy land in their countries. An Emirati can own land in Saudi Arabia. Now foreigners can in general, but even when that wasn't the case, Emiratis could, Kuwaitis could, vice versa. You just didn't get free electricity if you lived in a country where the citizens got it. You still paid, but you could live there without having to go through immigration stuff. That's the truth of the matter. And we could have something similar like that between us, but we have to start while the states are collapsing anyway, which is already inevitable based on the attitudes towards education that the youth have. We can start focusing because we men are already going through a change. We're no longer listening to women's attitudes towards us when we have a positive attitudes towards education. We already know, sister girl's like, I don't want this, I don't want that. We already know sister girl don't want a nerd. She'll study, that's fine, but she don't want a nerd. And we're looking and saying, bitch, we don't care. If I got to study to have a future, to have the shit that you want me to have later on in life, then I'll go ahead and study to get it. But since you don't want that since you don't want me to do that stuff right now while I'm young to get it, when I do have it, you can't have it with me. F you. So we're starting to change the attitude at the same time that They're sitting up and looking and saying, no, I'll just go ahead and be stupid. I'll let Chat GPT make me a dummy. We're beginning to see that attitude for what it is. It's not a black attitude, it's a white attitude. Black fatigue that these white folks are talking about in today's time, which is not how it was meant in the title of the book by that same name. But black fatigue, as told by that Karen, meaning their fatigue with hearing about black people and the issues, that feeling, which is actually white fatigue. Or really, it's more like just white unaccountability. Let's call that what it is. Well, see, that white unaccountability feeling comes from a low intellect, which is the same reason why many of them have this anti-educational attitude. They don't want to develop skills. They'll do it, but they don't really want to. Their motivation for developing skills was to not be in a position in which they were constantly locking us. That's what the hell that was. We developed skills anyway. We got out of the position. They couldn't successfully lock us out of all these things all the time if they really wanted to get stuff done. So, things about maintaining and fixing infrastructure, it had to be us because we learned it. So what I'm getting at is that low intellect that they have is why it is that they even have this, what they call black fatigue, which is actually just white unaccountability. It's Karen entitlement. That's what the hell that is. And we black folks don't have black fatigue. I mean, we have black fatigue, meaning we are black and we're fatigued by them crackers. Regular white folks don't even cause that. They're sick and tired of the same stuff with which we're sick and tired. But the crackers, meaning the whip crackers, that's what I'm talking about. Got everybody fatigued. Their own, us, immigrants, black or non-black. They got everybody fatigued. And they're the main ones that celebrate this anti-intellectual attitude amongst them. And their kids are beginning, because they're teenagers, they're like, well, yeah, you know what? Education don't mean nothing. Now, the real truth is a lot of the work that is difficult in schools has been difficult for not a goddamn good reason at all. Some of these math classes are difficult for nothing, just to make sure that a certain number of kids don't pass. That's very true. Some of the literature, same thing. But by the same token, and the way that you get overwhelmed with this stuff is also a problem. That is also an issue. So the educational system is not really designed for the benefit anyway, but I want you guys to keep in mind and understand what is even more important than that. And that is that, frankly, gentlemen, the work is difficult and it's not always a good thing. But their attitude is still one of laziness, because Hannah was talking about trying to write. And I can tell you, as somebody who was teaching subjects that weren't really that difficult and were still important to know in your regular daily life, if for no other reason than not be misled and easily lied to, I taught writing, history, and now I'm teaching a language that is actually widely used throughout the world. I'm doing this and I am finding the same further-mucking attitudes, and I found it in the States too. Couldn't spell, didn't want to write anything. It's too hard. I can't think of anything. That's how bad they were. I would start with, when I had to teach history lessons, I would start with basics, and I would try to start with whatever they knew. So I would wind up asking them, well, did you hear about this? Well, did you hear about that? Did you hear about that? No. We were finally going back to kindergarten. And they didn't hear about the basics. They had no foundation. And they were sitting in my classroom in 6th and 7th grade, blinking their eyes at me like I'm supposed to be able to explain this to them. I can't, because I have to explain to you what is in this book. And in order to explain to you what is in this book, you were supposed to pay attention before you got to me, and you didn't. You can't tell me nobody explained it to you, because I can hear them down the hallway explaining it to the kids that are now where you were. So no, that's not what's going on. You just didn't pay attention and they passed you along. Now you're going to fail. My nickname was Grade Dropper, the first teaching job I had. All I knew was I was doing my damn job and the kids weren't. What you want me to do? Of course your grades are going to drop. The question is, why weren't they that low in the first place? Well, that was the system. I didn't know that. And I've quickly found there's nothing you can do. They're not going to learn. It is over. It was over over a decade ago. It was over 2 decades ago before I even started. It was over in 2005 before I started training to be a teacher. It was over in 1995 when I was still in high school. It has been over. It's just taken a long time because America has momentum from two things: the momentum we have given it, and the momentum it has gotten from intelligent and highly educated, specialized immigrants they have taken. They may not want them anymore, but they've always taken them, and that is what has kept America afloat. That's where America's brain power has been for the longest. It's always been that way. And I'm going to tell you now that when they're now starting to say, okay, well, we don't want hardly any of you coming in. And they're just looking for reasons to keep people out. And that's what they're doing. When they're doing this, I'm going to tell you now that what's going to happen is that America's going to get rid of its own brain power, and they don't care. Trump, as smart as he is when it comes to business, in terms of looking for people that know more than he does, ain't really that smart. And he puts people in place that do stupid things. He learned better. He doesn't do that his second term as much as he did in his first. I mean, look at his cabinet his first term. But what I'm telling you is that the man still, he's more business smart than political. And even then, his smarts in business don't come from how to make money. They come from how to use money others don't have to make money they can't make because they don't have it. That's the extent of his intelligence in business. He's experienced, but he's not naturally gifted in it. He was just given a really good head start. And he didn't screw it up, not in terms of business. He was in a military school when he was younger. It was designed to be a punishment for him for his bad behavior, but he actually excelled in that because it's war. But when it comes to politics, he's still learning it. But look at who voted for him the first time. Look at who the hell voted for him. That tells you everything right there. Look who voted for him the first time that he ran. If you think about who the hell they are, you should start hearing banjos playing in your mind. Right, mother cuss word now. They are the products of the American educational system. So when Hannah quit, she was right. I'm telling you that America has treated its teachers so badly and catered to dumbass students so much and allowed more deserving students to be not only overlooked, but bullied by the less deserving students so much that the educational system is one of the main litmus tests and even one of the main problems that is going to make America ripe for a collapse from within. Shaheed Bolson's right about that. He talks about the stupidity that American life breeds. He is not lying. He is not. I see it here, but the difference is that here, the government does not go in on. They don't back that up. The Bedouin culture kind of does, somewhat, but the government does not. The government does not care or does not care about nor respect Bedouin culture. So when your granddad is like, school, what do you learn in school? That doesn't benefit. It doesn't benefit. When he's sitting up saying this because he remembers the good old days living in a tent, even though he's sitting in a house remembering these good old days living in tents with no air conditioning. While he's sitting up and saying this dumb stuff, and his grandkids are thinking, yeah, who needs school? While he's doing that, the government is sitting up and saying, no, we're not going to have a nation of dummies. And they're cracking down on the government schools to make them do better and do their jobs and teach better. And eventually they're going to start cracking down on private schools because the private schools are beginning to slack off and just sell the grades. It's a reversal going on, and the government's going to crack down on them. And the same government that is now cracking down on political corruption and financial corruption will eventually start cracking down on academic corruption because guess what? Those investigators don't want to lose their jobs when they work themselves out of the job. What are they going to do next? It's going to be academic corruption. And one of the reasons it will be is because you got professors and teachers like me that will say, go ahead and investigate this because we got further muckers out here teaching these kids nothing at all. And then and passing them on. And the kids are sitting in our classroom and we can't do our job because there's nothing to build on. We got to do our job and the last teacher's job for them. I know that because I'm getting classrooms where last semester, not a single student was actually ready for the advanced level that I have to teach. Not a single solitary one. There is no exception. Now, 2 of them almost passed, so we let them pass. We, the administration and I together, let them pass. I told them privately, nigga, you failed, but you were so close to passing, we gave you a chance. Don't screw it up on the exit exam. And they failed the exit exam. But everybody failed, really. Every last one of them. And now this time, I got a classroom where more than half the section is not prepared. How are they not prepared? They simply don't fix mistakes. And that's the main problem with Arab males. They don't fix mistakes. You can teach them, they're just not going to fix it. Because fixing a mistake in a language means that you think before you speak. That's how you fix a mistake in a language. Especially if you have already repeated the mistake many times before. That means the next time you're about to say the same thing, the same way for which you've been corrected, you actually stop and think about the correction before you say it out loud so that you say it correctly. Arabs don't do that. Arab men don't do that. Negroes don't like to do that a whole lot. People in general don't, but Arabs and Negroes are some of the main ones that hate to think before we speak. And what the hell happens? They keep on doing the same dumb stuff. How I can spell? No, dumbass, it's how do I spell? Asking questions all jacked up. Subject verb disagreement for no dot-gam reason at all. He don't say sorry. He doesn't say sorry. I taught you that. Professor Black, why you don't make this easy? No, see, dumbass, I told you this multiple times. You know this. You just don't want to think before you speak. Because you a stubborn ass, stereotypical Bedouin male. That's why. And you're proud of that, aren't you? Yeah, see, look at you. Well, nigga, you just screwed that up. Now say it the way I taught you. Oh, why don't you make this easy? Because that ain't going to help you none. That's why. And I actually do specialize in making English easy and they still screw up. But that's on them. So I know this when I see it because I still see it over here. That's part of why I got a job. However, as I've stated, they do allow people with the skill to come in and hold it together. And more their own people are beginning to betray the nigger culture they have towards education and join us in holding it together. And we black folks in the States, especially black men, from what I'm seeing with you in the black manosphere, are beginning to say, okay, screw this anti-education attitude that the sisters want us to have, that they themselves actually don't have because they know it won't help them. We're going to go ahead and have a pro-educational attitude. Buck these fitches. Hats off to you. Good job, gentlemen. Now, understand, though, that education is actually one of the main ways, if you're looking to leave, being able to educate others, and certifiably so, is one of the main ways to get your butt out. And in order to do that, you got to go through training, but you cannot have the goal that you're going to stay in the States and try to educate the kids there. You can't do that. You can't teach the youth of the community because they ain't going to listen. You can't teach any kid that goes into the public. You can't make that your goal because it's not going to work. You're not allowed to do anything that's actually effective. Everything effective is illegal. At least it was when I left. And Trump can talk all this right-wing conservatism about we're going to bring corporal punishment back into the schools. He can talk that all he wants to. You know that man does not want a bunch of FBA teachers beating the snot out them little badass white kids. That's what it is. And we don't want their teachers touching our black kids because we know that they're not going to touch our black kids on the butt with a paddle because they were misbehaved. It's going to be because they were black. And he got mad or she got mad. The thing is, we're just going to have to be able to leave instead of thinking about who we're going to beat up and whip. We're just going to have to be able to step over certain bodies as we've been hearing. That's what it's going to take. Well, guess what, y'all? It's going to take stepping over bodies. And that's the same thing here. A lot of people here are going to have to be willing to step over the bodies of their own people. I've told them that. You really want to see advancement? You're going to have to be willing to leave behind some of your friends who do nothing but cheat their way through life. You're going to have to actually be willing to create some of those bodies by snitching on them. You're going to have to be able to tell on them and say, yeah, you know what? You're going to have to be able to do that. You're going to have to be able to say, yeah, you know what? He cheated. He cheated off me. Write that F down because that little mother cuss word does not deserve the grade. Even though that's considered treachery amongst your people. How you gonna tell this foreign professor that I cheated? You gonna snitch me out? F you. You a traitor. You ain't no real better one. You ain't no. You're right. I'm not. Okay, I'm a fake. Whatever. You cheated and I did it. You don't deserve the same grade. Now say another mother cuss word about it. That's what has to happen. And that is happening over here, which is why education is changing and improving slowly, but it is happening. Is that happening over there? No, them kids are still sitting up there talking about some snitches get stitches. Snitches get stitches. Yeah, I cheated. Yeah, I used Chat GPT, but so what? If you tell anybody, I'm going to beat the hell out of you. Can honest students pick up a chair and crack it over the heads of the cheaters and get away with it? Well, until that day, you might as well just go ahead and give up on them. If you are an educator there, for now, the best thing you can do is pull the good students off to the side and say, study and get the F out this country when you can, because it doesn't deserve you. And if you are a teacher there, I'm telling you now, if you're a teacher and you're honest, fit the guck out that country because it doesn't deserve you, or get out of the field, because America's educational system is so goddamn bad. It was years ago when I left. It ain't got better from what you said. So that means it's so goddamn bad. It doesn't deserve a single teacher. America deserves to wake up one day and find there's not a teacher that is willing to do the job because their kids ain't shit. And the school boards ain't shit. And the standards ain't shit. We don't need no water. Let that further mucker burn. They don't need no lifeboats. They didn't want them. You were the lifeboat. They didn't want you to actually do your job. Bitch, sink or swim then. That's what we got to tell them. Tell the parents this if they weren't going to whip them kids, little badasses. Tell the kids this. Tell the school boards this because they weren't going to let you actually enforce standards. No, the little motherfucker failed. And you told me I can't fail more than whatever percentage of my class. Well, guess how many percentage failed? All of them. Oh, he can only fail 4 students. Oh, so all of them decided they weren't going to do the work. And the good ones got beaten up because they showed up with the work in their hand. And I still wasn't allowed to pass. I wasn't allowed to fail the ones that didn't. So they went on to the next class with the good students, because I wasn't allowed to fail them, and then they beat the hell out of them. So that's what we're dealing with. Yeah. Shout out to S. Jock for sending me that because, boy, I'm telling you, artificial intelligence is it's not leading to intelligence anymore. Artificial intelligence is now becoming authentic stupidity. And that's because that's what people insist on. Hope that what I said is some benefit. Thanks for listening. As always, black heart, black mind, black out, assalamu alaikum. Black heterosexual, non-select, male power because they don't like it. Black patriarch until extinction of judgment day. Thank you for flying with us again here on Jet Black Air, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us till the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender, justice, forever.